Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is the Long Island Report on 107.1 WLIR. Using common sense, talking Long Island issues. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Good afternoon. This is the Long Island Report. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is my good friend and esteemed colleague, Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the chair of the Suffolk County Party and the vice chair of the state Republican Party. Good to talk to you again, Jesse. How are you?
I'm doing well. Great to be back with you.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. Every week it's the same, but it's different and different plays. But the world is moving very, very quickly. And one of the big problems I'm very concerned about is this danger of systemic wokeism. You know, the political correct, identity politics, censorship of ideas, of thought, of language, suppression of scientific and medical research because it's not politically convenient. And it's permeated academia. It's now permeating medical and scientific research. It's certainly permeated the bureaucracy. It's permeated the media. And this is very dangerous because unless you have free thought, free expression of ideas, an ability to go point counterpoint and have real discussions about real problems and real proposed solutions, we're kidding ourselves about moving forward. We're going backwards rather than forwards. What do you think?
I completely agree with you. And the issue here is that this is just an idea. This is just a philosophy amongst Democrats and progressives to shut off the fountain of ideas of differing opinions. They also want to control speech. They want to control comedians. That's the problem we're having here right now, is that they want to control speech, control ideas, control philosophies. They want to censor differing opinions from their own because they know that when they put forward ideas next to each other, that their ideas are going to fail. People are going to run away from them. So the best way to do that is to try and engage in a cancel culture type of form of government. As you said, we've seen it in our universities and colleges. We've seen it in some of our schools. We're even seeing it now. This wokeism is permeating into the Defense Department. I mean, the last time I checked, our soldiers, sailors, and Marines and such, and airmen are supposed to be there to defend us. There's one way to point a weapon, point to the enemy, and move forward. We don't need wokeism and all of this other cancel culture inside our military and inside our universities. Let people have their free discourse of ideas, thoughts, and processes. That's what this country was built upon.
Well, that's exactly right, Jesse. That's why it's the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. The fact is, that's why it's the First Amendment. If you don't have free and open discussion, if you can't challenge existing orthodoxies and basic premises that turn out to be incorrect or could be modified or adjusted for real solutions in the real world. For example, they passed this law that the governor in California thought was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I know Gavin Newsom, the governor, and when I knew him when he was mayor of San Francisco, you know, he thinks it's great that if a doctor says something that's against the conventional orthodoxy of the medical establishment, then they can have their licenses suspended or revoked in the state of California. I mean, how awful is that? How do you get any kind of scientific or medical progress unless you can challenge the current orthodoxies? And what you just said, Jesse, about the military, let's go to this issue. And this is very important for our listeners to understand. Everybody always says that the United States has the strongest military in the world. Well, that's been historically correct, but it's no longer correct. We're now being outstripped and out-advanced by the Chinese in terms of technology. They have a stronger naval presence than we have. Obama succeeded in stripping our Navy. They've cut the military budget. They've put in this political correct wokeism instead of learning how to fight, they're learning how to be politically correct, which is nonsense. You have to train your soldiers to protect the homeland, not to not hurt somebody's feelings. That's not their job. And the Chinese have an agenda, and if you look at what's going on in the Chinese conference now, which is going to anoint Xi for life as the leader of that country, he's interested in world domination. He's interested in hegemony. He's not interested in being co-equal with the United States. He wants to surpass the United States, and he wants to take control. And their game is to be able to take us out militarily. And their advancements with their technology and their military strength is enormous. The Heritage Foundation, Jesse, just came out with a report. Wall Street Journal has reported on this. Gordon Chang is one of the leading experts on China, who we have on the Cap's Night Show regularly. They've pointed this out in the Gatestone Institute. What you have is the inability of the United States to fight on two fronts at the same time. Moreover, it's even worse than that. We may not even have the capacity to fight on one front head to head against the Chinese. What say you?
I agree. I mean, our military needs to get back to defending our nation, our liberties, and our freedoms. And we need to be partners with similar countries of that similar Republican democracies, freedom-loving people. And that's what their job should be. We can't have this wokeism or this cancer culture or this cultural war that's ongoing. Just recently, we've seen in our colleges where we have the political indoctrination using wokeism, and it's been a long-standing operation from the left to try and stomp out different ideas. And the ideas, quite frankly, that they're trying to stomp out are those of conservative voices, Republican voices. And I would say the same if we were trying to stamp out voices from the far left. The more they speak, quite frankly, as a Republican political leader here in Long Island and one throughout the state, the more that they speak about their processes, their philosophies, and their plans and such, the better it becomes for us here to have a debate. We've seen that in our congressional races here in Suffolk County. We've seen our governor candidate, Lee Zeldin, outline the differences between the far left progressive policies of Kathy Hochul and one that he would bring as governor here to the state of New York. So that's why we don't want it. Number one, the First Amendment should never be one where we suppress speech. Number two, we should not have the political indoctrination on our colleges, in our institutions such as the Defense Department, our military, and all our ranks through there. And we need to have a discourse of this so we can get good ideas to come forward. This needs to stop because, like in the case of the military you brought up, their job is to defend our way of life across this globe and to help our allies that feel and share the same beliefs that we do. We do not need the political indoctrination that is going on even in our schools, in our high schools and our middle schools and our elementary schools. We don't need indoctrination in our education. We need to go back to our basics.
That's exactly right.
So this whole cancer culture has got to end.
Well, but you see, this is the problem. The far left and a lot of the Democrats talk about the fighting to save democracy. Well, the question is, how are you going to define democracy? They have no respect for the institutions of our federal system, of our constitutional order. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They want to abolish the filibuster. If they like decisions on the courts, they attack the courts. They've made a hostile attempt to intimidate the United States Supreme Court. There have even been physical threats against justices of the court. Senator Schumer was banging on the door in front of the Supreme Court of the United States because they didn't like some decisions. He said, and he called out different Supreme Court justices by names and warned about the changing of Roe versus Wade. They try to control the narrative. They try to use Orwellian speech to play games that they're for democracy. Well, they're not for democracy. They're not for the institutions. What they are is for getting their way. And anybody who stands in their way, they will try to destroy and intimidate. And that's the danger of wokeism. It's all about destruction of freedom of speech. It's all about intimidation. It's all about silencing the opposition. It's not free and open discussion and debate, as you point out, on the merits. And you have this whole phenomena, and it's all across the country, by the way, and that's because the Democrats, and remember, I'm the House Democrat, and I'm telling you the truth, the Democrats were afraid to run on their record because their record is a disaster. So you have this character, Fetterman, out in Pennsylvania, in a very important race. The guy is a far, far, far lefty. Always has been a far lefty. He wants to release everybody from the jails. When he's on the parole board, he voted to get everybody out. He's for totally defunding the police. Now he's trying to deny he ever said that, but the record is clear. He's running against a very well-qualified, brilliant surgeon, Dr. Oz, who will do a great job because he's a thoughtful, reasonable person, a common-sense, moderate Republican who will be a great senator. But who do you have? You have Fetterman, who has neither the ideological or the intellectual capacity, and now he's physically and mentally backward because of the strokes. And yet people are going to vote for this, and he'll just sign off on and vote any way he's told by the Democratic establishment if they have the Senate. This is a very important thing, and he's not willing to debate. So he's finally agreed to do one debate. In the same way, Hochul has tried to avoid debates. Why won't Hochul debate Zeldin? Why won't Fetterman debate Dr. Oz? Because they can't run on their policies. They can't run on their records. When you look at a careful examination and an honest debate, they cannot win because they're wrong on the merits and they're wrong on the values of the American people. Kevin has just given us the sign. We're going to be taking a break now. This is Judge Richard Weinberg. I'm with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Please stay tuned. A lot more to talk about. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
It's the Long Island Report, using common sense, talking Long Island issues. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia on 107.1 WLIR.
This is the Long Island Report. We're back. This is Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is my good friend and esteemed colleague, Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party and the vice chair of the state Republican Party. Jesse, we're coming up on the midterm elections, and let me just say to you, as I've been observing this and I pay attention to this stuff just the way you do, seems to me Biden is hiding, Obama is showing up trying to rally the Democratic base, the Democrats are trying to distance themselves from Biden, and I think the Democrats know that they're in trouble in this midterm cycle. What do you say?
I completely agree. I think the fact that Biden has been hiding since 2020 when he was hanging out in his basement, and unfortunately, he should have stayed there because his policies have ruined this country over the last 2 years. We have higher taxes, higher inflation, higher crime, and now we have, supply chain problems that we're losing, a month's salary. The average American is losing a month's salary to high cost inflation, and their salaries aren't going up under the Biden economic failures. But this is classic politics that they tried in 2016. Remember that when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump, they ran out Obama at that point. Now, there was a different place in history for this because he was the sitting president to rally the troops because she was failing under her own campaign, under her own corruption, and under her own gaffes, while President Trump was surging. That didn't work in 2016. Obviously, there were issues with the pandemic where I believe the Democrats at the federal level and state level and local level in different states weaponized the electoral system utilizing COVID and scare tactics that led to Biden's apparent victory at the ballot box. But this game is not going to work again. It didn't work in 2016. They don't have COVID to cover up their gaffes and cover up their misgivings in 2020 like they did in 2020. And this year you have Republicans surging. And part of it is what you pointed out. There is a quality of candidate out there. There's a blue collar, middle class family type of candidates that's coming from the Republican Party that believes in our freedom loving principles of liberty and self-rule that is resonating with American people. The people of America have bought into, hoodwinked or otherwise in 2020, in different states. The fact that Biden said he was going to be a different president, he's going to have a different discourse in this country, and he is going to bring people together. What he has done has divided people, has tacked to the left to take care of his left progressive socialist wing of his party that he is scared of and controls that party. And his policies have been done on not a bipartisan manner, they've been done on a partisan manner. He has even called all Republicans the equivalent to deplorables. We've had Kathy Hochul call all Republicans or people that disagree with the ideology of the Democratic Party under their leadership to move to Florida. Out in the last segment that when the Democrats, when they lose on votes and ideas and decisions on our government, they try to change the rules of the game to benefit them, and the American people aren't going to let them. I think that you can just see the fact that no competitive race at any level, local or for governor or for U.S. Senate, no one wants to mention or be connected to Biden. No one wants to do that. They're trying to roll out former President Obama. That's not going to work like it didn't work in 2016. The Republicans in these races have the ideas, they have the philosophy, they're in touch with their constituencies, and they have a plan. We have a commitment with America to change the direction of this country. And most importantly, we are going back to a checks and balances form of government. We don't need one-party rule in Albany or in D.C. We're going to break the Democrat majority in the state Senate. We're going to elect Lee Zeldin, the governor here in the state of New York, and we're going to take the House. And I'm telling you, there's momentum out there. We talked about Pennsylvania. We talked about Arizona, Nevada, Ohio. There's momentum. Republicans will take control of the U.S. Senate to truly provide Americans with a path to prosperity and act as the ultimate check against Joe Biden.
Well, I'll tell you this about the midterm election. And I had the occasion, I was with John Catsimatidis the other night, and Steve Moore and Larry Kudlow and Steve Forbes have a group, an economic group, and they have monthly meetings. And I go to that. And you have journalists from the Wall Street Journal, the National Review, the New York Post, other publications, Heritage Foundation is there, Gatestone Institute is there. And they're very thoughtful people. And I was asked to speak. And I pointed out to them, I said, look, this is the most consequential midterm election of my lifetime. And I've seen a whole bunch of midterm elections as well as presidential elections. And I said, but it's not enough to win the United States House of Representatives because you cannot check the policies of this administration by just having one house of the Congress. It's absolutely essential to stop the left-wing drift of this country and the takeover of the Democratic Party by the left wing, the socialists. You have to have a win in the Senate as well. It's not enough to have 50-50 because the Vice President of the United States under our Constitution is a tiebreaker. And look at all the bad legislation they've pushed through on votes having that advantage of 50-50 with the tiebreaker being the Vice President. So this is dangerous stuff. The Republicans need to do this. This one-party government is a disaster. It has to be stopped. We have runaway inflation. It's only getting worse. The latest reports are in 2023 that mortgage rates could be breaking into double digits. They're now in excess of 7%. That decreases the value of real estate. That means if you own a house, the value of your property is down. It means with runaway inflation, Jesse, your deferred comps, your IRA, your pension monies, they're down 24% since the Biden administration has taken over. The border is not safe. We'll talk about that more in a while. The border is not safe. So you have the fentanyl problem, and you have the cartel problem, and you have the disease problem because they mandated everybody had to get the shots for COVID. We get people coming in by the hundreds of thousands and the millions, and who knows who they are. Are they cartel members? Are they terrorists? Are they carrying diseases? We don't know. And this is the administration. This is their record. This is what they want to run on. No wonder Hochul is hiding. No wonder Fetterman is hiding. No wonder Biden has to be scripted all the time because these people have nothing to run on. They have to be repudiated. To save my party, the Democratic Party, they have to be thrown out of the Democratic Party, and we need new blood back to the center. And the country desperately needs a change of course. Democrats cannot change a course because they're wedded and captured by the left. And I agree with what you said earlier, that this is a decisive election in our time, and the momentum is with the Republicans.
Think about this. Think about, why is Kathy Hochul hiding? Why is she running chicken from Lee Zeldin? If she is so confident in the record she has accumulated over the last 14 months, but let's remember, that record also includes her time as being a silent partner to Andrew Cuomo for the last 8 years, if not or more, where she was part and parcel about, policies like cashless bail that allows a revolving door system of criminal justice that puts criminals back on the streets and handcuffs cops and judges. This is all of the progressive left that this one-party rule legislature has enacted since 2019. Well, she was never there to talk about the and that corruption. You know why? Because she was part and parcel of it. Now we've seen that with her own corruption, her pay-for-play operations. She's taking money from companies that have never been doing business with the state of New York on COVID tests and the distribution of such that are markedly higher than anywhere else. Now we see other issues where those companies that are looking to get a casino license, and let's not forget, her husband is general counsel to Delaware North, one of the largest casino operators in the country, and they do all these venues. They're seeking licenses in the state of New York and contributing heavy dollars to her. She is of the Cuomo 2.0 corruption that has been going on here. That's why she's hiding. She cannot and does not have the answers to tack away face to face. That's why she's in a controlled environment all the time. Lee Zeldin, he's out there with the people. He's out there at subways. He's out there at festivals. He's out there so much that someone would attack him and cut him with a knife at his throat. Fortunately, because of his training as an airborne military officer and being a black belt, he was able to fend that off. But he is immersed in the public, answering those tough questions from the New York press. Kathy Hochul isn't. She's hiding. She's hoping that the people don't have an opportunity to look at her record. The thing is, though, we are singing as a chorus in the Republican Party. Whether you're Lee Zeldin running for governor, the state assembly candidate, or a candidate for trustee, or in Suffolk County, we are saying and singing the same chorus about the failures of the Democratic Party.
Well, again, this is an election that's very important because I was taking the bus to the office today. And one of the bus drivers who I see on a regular basis, we started talking, and he said to me, he raised the issue. I didn't raise it with him. He says, "Don't you just want to leave New York?" And I said, "I've spent my entire career protecting and defending the city, but I have to worry about, does the city and the state have a future?" He says, "It's all this crazy legislation that the Democrats have pushed through." And I'm listening to him. And I said, I ought to invite this guy on as a guest on the show. He's telling me what's wrong, and he's the bus driver. And that's the problem. The average person who cares about the city, who's lived here, the working person, not the people taking a free ride, not the people who have ideological agendas, but the bus drivers realize they see what's going on in the city. They see what's happening. And the bus drivers are saying, wait a minute, this city and this state is being lost because of all these crazy ideas. When we come back, we're taking a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about this piece of legislation that Kathy Hochul, as governor, you can't even say that she just was a silent partner to Andrew Cuomo, but as governor, she signed a piece of legislation called Less is More, which has to do with parole, which is a very dangerous piece of legislation in and of itself. So when we come back, we'll be talking about that and much, much more on the Long Island Report. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with my esteemed colleague, Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party. Stay tuned. A lot more to talk about. We'll be back in a moment.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
It's the Long Island Report, using common sense, talking Long Island issues. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia on 107.1 WLIR.
All right, we're back. This is the Long Island Report. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is my good friend, esteemed colleague, Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party, as well as the vice chair of the state Republican Party. When we broke for this last break, Jesse, I said that I want to talk just a couple of moments about this less is more legislation. You made a good point that Kathy Hochul was a silent partner to Andrew Cuomo with some of this crazy so-called progressive criminal justice legislation. Well, here's a piece of legislation that she wasn't a silent partner on, Jesse. She signed the bill. It's called Less is More. And what does it do? It gets parolees out early before their sentences, are completed. So they're getting so-called good time for not getting in trouble while they're in prison. So they get time, so they're being released early. Okay, that's number one. Number two, when they're released, they're not being supervised anymore, Jesse, by the Department of Parole. They're just out there. Number three, if you're the victim of a crime, a woman is a rape victim, or you've been a victim of a serious assault or an attempted murder, the victim is not even given a heads up by the Department of Parole that, in fact, the guy is back out on the streets. So that's a real trifecta. Get him out early, give no notice to the victim, and no supervision. What do you say about that?
Just think about it. The same, clown car of elected officials that brought us cashless bail, that empowered criminals, minimized the voices of victims, put them more in jeopardy, and handcuffed cops and judges, are now giving us this piece of legislation that threatens even more of our public safety. Think about it. These are criminals that are in jail, and Kathy Hochul and the Democrats want to release them. They want to release them early. They want to release them with no supervision. At least 8,000 potential parolees are already going to be able to be eligible to be released from the Department of Corrections supervision into our streets. And this is supposed to be public safety. This is not public safety. This is attack to her left progressive wing because she's in a tough race. This is nothing more than appeasing a small part of our New York community, progressive socialist Democrats, for the purposes of transforming public safety and law enforcement here in New York. This is wrong. Think about it.
Well, Jesse, let me...
The parole board is already problematic in the fact that it's releasing cop killers, drug dealers, and so on and so forth, and murderers before they should be. And all you have to do is look at the Daily News story that wrote this. They are basing these reforms on championed and reforms by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. This is the man that Lee Zeldin has vowed to fire on day one because he does not put criminals or violent criminals in jail. He releases them. He's going against his oath of office to prosecute crimes. He is putting victims who have already been victimized harshly and putting them in further danger. This is the type of criminal justice system that appeases criminals, empowers crime, and does nothing for the middle-class families here of New York. It handcuffs judges, it handcuffs cops, and it really does make New York unsafe. It continues down that path of empowering criminals and empowering crime and putting us at an unsafe place. And remember, it was on Cats at Night about 3 weeks ago, a Democrat, a governor, Patterson, said that for the first time, and he's lived through the 70s, 80s, and early 90s of crime in New York City and New York State, he feels unsafe. Well, he feels unsafe because the family in Shirley feels unsafe. The family in Ronkonkoma feels unsafe. The family in Lawrence feels unsafe. The families all over New York feel unsafe because of these failed policies. They don't increase public safety. They only help criminals. They don't even actually help the advocates and the criminals that they were aimed to do. This is nothing more than a continued assault on the public safety of middle-class families and the continued assault on law enforcement.
Well, that's exactly right. And it's not, by the way, it's not just New York. The New York situation is worse because in New York, under the cashless bail law passed by the Democratic supermajority and signed by Andrew Cuomo, and even with the so-called improvements by Kathy Hochul when she became governor, which are no improvements at all, just window dressing, judges do not have the power to hold somebody in based on dangerousness. Number one. Number two, even if it's something that is so-called bail eligible, that is, a judge can set bail, judge has to use the least drastic means to ensure they return and has to do a financial assessment in a hearing where they can pay the bail. So it's illusory that judges can hold people in, except in the most extreme cases. And that's why you have a culture of lawlessness. But it's worse than that. It's not just a New York problem. And that's the one thing I agree with the people I debate on Cats at Night. It's not just a New York problem, but it's worse in New York. And I've told that to the Attorney General of this state, Tish James, at a lunch.
Judge Weinberg, I don't believe that they have this problem in Florida, in Texas. I don't believe they have this problem down there. What we do have is a problem with philosophy. The Democrats that control this state makes it worse because these are the ones that gave us cashless bail. They've already begun the process of making us unsafe. I've told the story countless times. There was a criminal that was arrested on a Monday, on one day, WI. He was released. He got drunk hours later and killed a family on William Floyd Parkway. That criminal, that judge should have had the ability, and he was a repeat offender, that should have had the judicial discretion to keep them or not allow bail of that individual. But now a family has had to suffer a death because of this law. The blood of all these victims that have transpired since the advent of cashless bail is squarely on the hands of Kathy Hochul and every Democrat. Monica Martinez, who's trying to we bounced her out of the state Senate in 2020 because the voters had buyer's remorse. She's trying to run again, and we are going to remind everyone, if you're a victim of a gang leader, fentanyl, assault of those victims are on Monica Martinez's hands because she voted multiple times for cashless bail.
Well, it's not, but let's be fair. It's a New York problem, and it's worse in New York based on what we've been talking about. But this is across the country. Democratic cities have put in all these so-called progressive policies that have made the cities unsafe. And the prosecutors who will not enforce the laws and the mayors who give up their police stations and let the mobs take over, where they have, these zones like they had out west in Portland and Seattle, where they took over stretches of territory. This is an awful situation. And who's behind it? It's the George Soros money that funded all these campaigns for the so-called progressive county prosecutors or city district attorneys all across the country, wherever they were, San Francisco, L.A., Portland, Seattle, Philadelphia, in New York, wherever you've had these kinds of so-called progressive prosecutors, they don't know their job. Their job is to protect and defend the people. That's their first obligation. They've abdicated responsibility. And I don't know what Soros is trying to accomplish by making our cities unsafe. And this is a very big deal. And you have to remember that the power of the DA to even bring charges is enormous. It's called prosecutorial discretion. And when you have DAs out there saying they're not going to enforce this law, they're not going to enforce that law, they're going to pick and choose what they're going to do. Shoplifting is not a big deal. Or, if you're driving a car while you're impaired, well, we'll give you a slap on the wrist, come back when you want to come back. That's not the way to ensure public safety. It's absolutely essential that whether you're talking about the Congress of the United States, you're talking about the United States Senate, you're talking about governorships, you're talking about attorney general spots, do not forget that the war to save our civilization, to save the crisis in America against total lawlessness and the breakdown of civilization, starts and ends with local prosecutors who enforce the laws, giving the power to the judges to hold in dangerous people and to stop legislatures with their wokeness and their ridiculous identity politics and their manipulation of statistics of letting people out who should be held in. And we got to deal with a problem that nobody wants to talk about, which is the homeless and the mentally ill and the drug addicted. They're all related. Homelessness and drug addiction and the mentally ill, all related. If you want to have programs, that's fine. And we'll get the programs, we get the shelters, we need it has to be done. That's fine. But never at the cost of letting the lawless and the dangerous out there. We've already, in the city of New York, Jesse, had 9 people who've been thrown to trains or been slashed to death on the subway system, and they want to ignore it. The MTA says the subways are safe. The subways are not safe. The crime in the subways is rampant. It goes on every day. People walking the streets in Times Square, they're attacked right by the subway stations, right in front of the theaters, right in front of the restaurants. This has to be confronted. Kevin has given us a sign. We'll be taking a break. This is Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. We'll be back in a moment for the next segment of the Long Island Report. Thank you.
And now, 2 pigeons bemoaning the fact you can choose the TV you want with DirecTV.
So now they can pick out their favorite entertainment when they sign up and save money?
You mean if you like sports?
You can get a sports pack.
What about entertainment?
Entertainment pack.
It's like finding an old pizza with your favorite toppings, which for me would be pineapple and toenails.
Pineapple?
Pay for the TV you want, not the TV you don't. Genre pack starting at $34.99 a month. Visit DirecTV.com for more information. New residential customers only. Local channels vary by market. Services renew monthly unless you cancel online. Credit card required. Restrictions apply. It's the Long Island Report, using common sense, talking Long Island issues. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia on 107.1 WLIR.
This is the Long Island Report. This is Judge Richard Weinberg. This is our final segment. With me, of course, is my esteemed co-host and good friend Jesse Garcia, the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party and the Chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. Jesse, the Green New Deal, I consider it a secular religion that's destroying our country and other countries domestically and enriching and arming our enemies. And what do you say about that?
Well, I think it's more like a political cult that's destroying our country and enriching and arming our enemies. Listen, we all want to protect this planet. We all want to protect for future generations. We all want to recycle more and do more and preserve our resources. However, this is funny. Republicans are being and common sense individuals are saying we should do that with science and technology and catch up to that. Have science and technology catch up to the desires of some of our more woke or progressive elected officials. But now they want to throw out technology and science, and I guess it only works if you have to force somebody or mandate somebody to wear a mask or take a shot. But the thing is here that this Green New Deal is not tested. It's not viable. It is propelled by fossil fuels. I mean, that's what moves the turbines to create electricity and such. We're all for preserving our environment. We want to keep this for our children. We want to preserve our resources, our natural resources, but we have to do it in a proper way. Not that it kills us economically here at home with our families and our businesses, but as you pointed out, it's arming and providing funding for our enemies in different parts of the land. These funds that they're utilizing and they receive are being now used against us in either in proxy wars or in direct wars against the United States and countries that believe in freedom and liberty and a free society and a democracy. That's the problem here. And one of the things that we can just look at this is, Kathy Hochul wants to eliminate natural gas for new construction. That's going to be – the technology is not there for. She wants a mandate that all fossil fuel cars are not able to be sold. Democrats throughout the country, and they use arbitrary dates, 2024, 2030, 2035, when the technology is not even there. We've spoken about, and we'll probably get into it again, how in the aftermath of hurricane, when floods come forward and natural disasters, these electric cars with the salt water, they blow up the batteries in these cars. But no one wants to talk about that because they all want to get the political headline. And now what's even more disastrous for small businesses and hardworking families. This country was energy independent on January 19th of 2021. That's exactly. We were able to use our pipelines, use our natural resources here to be energy independent, so we did not have to bargain with regimes outside this country that at times would be on our enemies on different security fronts. And what did Joe Biden do? He ended the Keystone Pipeline. He ended all, unilaterally, the permits on drilling on federal lands in a safe and environmentally capable way. And what are we doing? Now we are begging Saudi Arabia. We are begging OPEC. We are trying to hold a coalition together of Europe so that, Russia does not become more enriched by selling more natural gas and more fossil fuel to those European countries that funds their assaults on the Ukraine and other freedom-loving countries and such. And now we're even dealing with Venezuela. The new
amazing.
Gracias.
Isn't that amazing?
Unbelievable. And think about it. Home heating fuel is going up 29% this year. It's skyrocketing. Inflation's already removing a month's pay from the average middle-class family from their salaries without a reciprocal increase in their paychecks. That's the Biden and Democrats and Kathy Hochul's doing. And now we're going to throw on top of them another $2,300 to buy and fuel and warm their homes. Middle-class families are going to be having to choose. Are they going to be getting medicine or stay warm? Food or stay warm? They've already collapsed the stock market. Our IRAs are out the door. Our retirement plans are out the door. Now, on top of all this, we're going to have to pick and choose how we heat our homes and keep ourselves safe and healthy.
And that assumes that if they go totally electric in the absence of fuel oil or nuclear power, that the solar and wind and so-called electric can do it. Where's the grid? I don't see the grid in place, ready to go. I don't see the charging stations all over, ready to go. I don't see the fact that we're independent with respect to the natural resources that are necessary for electric, like the cobalt or lithium. That's all controlled by the Chinese or out in Afghanistan, a place that we gave up because of Biden's ridiculous foreign policy by abandoning Afghanistan, not leaving a force in place. They control all of that. People forget you need a source for electricity, and you need the natural resources, and the resources are controlled by the Chinese, whose agenda is to dominate us and control the world. So they're kidding themselves. So it's what I would call unilateral disarmament. It's unilateral energy disarmament, which leads to rapid inflation. You see it escalating. The inflation is not going to get better. Biden says he's done nothing to increase inflation. It's all Putin's war. That's nonsense. As soon as you increase the cost of energy, everything in the delivery chain goes up. Food, drugs, all kinds of supplies. Now, let me tell you something that I think is very, very interesting. The other night, as I said, I was at this dinner, and Fred Smith, who's the founder and now the chair of the board of FedEx, Federal Express, he spoke, and he was the honored guest at this dinner, and he said the following about why he thinks, and he's an honored Marine, award-winning Marine. He's a poor kid without a father, grew up and founded Federal Express, one of the great companies in this country. And this is what Fred Smith said, and I want to share this with our viewers and with you, Jesse. This is the problem facing America. Number one, we have a culture of no work. Less than 40% of the population who's capable of working are actually employed. So that means it's a threat to Social Security, and it means it's a threat to the culture, because if you have a culture of getting free money and not working, you don't get a culture of productivity, and without productivity, the economy doesn't grow. Without the economy doesn't grow, you don't have the resources to take care of your people. So that's number one, a culture of no work. But part of the culture of no work, you have these people, when they're idle, the old saw about idle minds lead to bad consequences and idle hands lead to bad consequences. You have people who are getting free stuff for doing nothing, and they're contributing nothing, and then they become a threat. The next thing that Fred Smith said was, and I've talked about it earlier in the show, the problem of mentally ill, we're not confronting the fact that we have to have resources and facilities to help the mentally ill. The next thing he said, and again, you and I have talked about it, the U.S. defense system is not prepared to meet the challenges of the emerging Chinese threat. And you got to deal with that. And then the final thing he said is that we're deindustrializing the United States. We don't produce anything anymore, Jesse. We're a service economy. So in other words, we move paper around, we put services around, but we're not producing baby formula, drugs, pharmaceuticals, food. We're not producing what we need to sustain ourselves. So in this last couple of moments, what do you have to say about Fred Smith's comments?
I can't. Number one, it's scary. And I think that if any reason why we need to change the direction of this country, I think he articulated that in at his dinner and his presentation to all of you. These are people who run big companies. They know how to meet a bottom line. Maybe we should listen to them every once in a while, and because they can see it on an international level where perhaps maybe the average middle-class American does not. But they're being successful in dealing with it. Our country needs to be successful in dealing with it, and it's not. These are warning signs that we need to take on. And, one of the things I have is just think about it. These Democrats who want to impose a socialistic state here in the United States and in the state, they want a nanny state here in New York. They want the population to be dependent on the government. And that is synonymous with those regimes in China and socialistic countries, Russia, where it's not a free market economy that allows people to grow in their lifestyle and in what they want to become. It eliminates, a capitalist society eliminates the caste system. It allows someone to be a laborer if they want to be, or the CEO of FedEx if they want to be, or anything in between. You have your self-determination. But now the government the government is the key tool of control, and that's why the worst thing that happened under COVID is the aftermath of it. Is the Democrats training and indoctrinating Americans, New Yorkers, that the government is your partner. It should not be your partner. It should be there to do what it needs to do best. And I will harken back to one of my favorite presidents in the world, in the history, Ronald Reagan, who said the scariest words he's ever heard is, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." Because in that everyday life, we don't need the government. Shouldn't have the government. It's like 1984 all over again, and we're seeing it all play out. And unfortunately, the aftermath of COVID and the weaponization of COVID by socialists, by Democrats, has allowed this country to feel okay, or at least use it as an option. They want to indoctrinate you that the government is here to run things for you. They can do things for you. No, we should take the shackles off of ourselves. We should be our own, determining where our own self-worth is and where our own destiny should be. That's what the American spirit is about. That's what leads to American exceptionalism. That's what led to us going to the moon. That's what led us to be a superpower here on this global stage.
And you're absolutely right. I agree with everything you said. And also, remember what Reagan said. We were the last best hope of mankind. We were the beacon on the hill of freedom, of liberty, of opportunity, and we should never forget that. This has been the Long Island Report with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Thank you for listening. We look forward to talking with you next week.
This episode is brought to you by GMC. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the GMC Certified Service Fresh Start Tire Event. Visit gmc.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.